All right. Hello, everyone. This is Sir Adrian here, and welcome back to our current Global War 1914 game we're having, Operation Bersaglieri. This will be the Imperial Russian turn in the spring of 1915. So before I get into the Russian turn, there were a couple housekeeping items. Having watched some of the previous videos and updated things on my end. So I'll start with the simplest. So down in Palestine, there should only currently be 3 infantry units and not 4. For some reason, on the TTS file, one of the stacks that had the infantry units, the chips, had it marked as 2 plus the infantry on top, so 3. And then with the one moved down from Syria, that was counted as 4. But reviewing the footage that I filmed following Tintin's orders for the last Ottoman turn in the fall-winter 1914, there shouldn't have been 3 there already. So that might have been a mistake on my end. I think it's very possible that I copied a chip from somewhere else to chip things out and didn't do it properly. But it doesn't affect anything else. So yeah, there's just 3 infantry there instead of 4, so no trench line for the time being. Aside from that, so Austria for some reason had 25 IPPs when they started their turn, but reviewing the footage, they should have had 23, including his wartime and all that. So I'm not sure how that got changed. In terms of his purchases, the only thing that would change is remove 2 cavalry units. So in Bohemia, there's only going to be the 1 cavalry. Everything else is the same. So the 2 infantry that were placed in Austria, as well as the colonial in Western Ukraine. And over in Eastern Ukraine, the one that was placed there, in my case, the 2nd Army. So with those changes, he would have saved an IPP. So his wartime income was 11 plus a base income of 15 by the end of his turn because he had taken some territory, so that went up slightly, plus the one he saved. So he should have 27 IPP to spend next turn. So I'll make sure that's updated. Next, there is the German cruiser raider near North America up here. So none of that changed. So that was in here. So on the German turn, he came into there, which as far as the rules are concerned, we're pretty sure that's allowed. I thought it'd be a hostile sea zone due to the torpedo boat destroyer in there, but I think they have to be on escort duty. That's definitely something that'd be nice to see more of in the future, maybe from General Hand Grenade or something of the sort, a video more about convoy line raiding in general, maybe strategies surrounding that, and when and where to put certain ships on escort and how that all kind of works. And yeah, I definitely think a strategy video surrounding that stuff would be regarding that stuff rather, would be quite nice. But that aside for now, so the German attack and everything was fine, and then the British counterattack and all that, as far as I'm aware. But this German cruiser raider, it wouldn't have retreated into this zone here, because then it would be bordering North America, and of course that would trigger, I believe it's a +3 IPP increase for the Americans. For every turn it stays there. So on the American turn this time around, for sure, they would have gained a +3. So from here, after it got attacked by the British, it probably would have just retreated into this sea zone, or even this sea zone, to be honest. So we'll keep it down here in A27, so in the sea zone just next to the German submarine off of Spain there that had done some raiding on the East Atlantic line. So that's good to go. Another big mistake or potential mistake, which was through no fault of MP7s. So this submarine was down here on his turn off the Cape Verde Islands, raiding the West African line. However, for some reason in the TTS file, this line is shown as being worth 3 IPPs for the British and 1 for the French, when in fact it is 3 for the Americans. Now, we were told he could have raided this line, and when you're raiding a line, you don't have to attribute all the damage. So in this case, he did 2 damage, so he could have just assigned 1 to the French in raiding in this sea zone, but he could have only assigned it to this line because he's not in a sea zone where there's a juncture of several lines. But yeah, so he could have assigned just the 1 to the French. He wouldn't have wanted to assign the other to the Americans. I mean, of course you could, but doing that would be tantamount to a declaration of war, and then the Americans would enter the war right away and jump up to their 37 IPP of wartime income. So, of course, the Central Powers don't want that, I'm sure, at least yet. Yeah, so we could have left it as is, but just so nothing changes with the British purchases and that, nothing would have anyways. It's just the British would have saved 2 IPP, but just so we don't have to, even change any of that, we'll say that the sub would have raided in zone A44 right here, so just off the Canary Islands and Gibraltar and all that. And it still would have done 2 damage, but it just would have been assigned to the East African line. So in total, there would have been, with that 3 there, 5 damage out of 6 on this line. And then, of course, still the two up there against the British, and then down over here, the 3 against the British, and then the 2 on the East Asian line. Yeah, so nothing changes there. The only thing that would have changed is this French seaplane that was in Tunisia originally. I imagine if that was in range, he would have wanted to have done an attack on his turn. So we'll go ahead and roll that. So it would have flown out 1, 2, and then it would have rolled for an attack with no defense from the sub. So that definitely would have been a hit on a 1. Okay, so there you go. So this sub would have been eliminated. It is eliminated. And then it ended in Morocco. So that's where it would have flown back, I imagine, just again to keep that consistent so we don't have to change too much from the past videos. So yeah, so once again, the German submarine that was in the Canary Islands still did the damage that it did during its turn, but it was sunk by the French seaplane coming from Tunisia. And then finally, or at least I think that's it. Yeah, so this battle here, so this one was a little bit confusing for Seb Scullion, and quite frankly, I think many of us, including myself, because you have torpedo boat destroyers as well as German cruiser raiders, and normally the British cruisers and torpedo boats, their attack values get reduced by 3. So you have your torpedo boats hitting on a 1 and your cruisers hitting on a 3 as opposed to a 6. But then that caused some confusion in terms of how things would work on subsequent rounds and attributing hits and that. So what ended up happening is in the first round of combat, you had one of the UK's torpedo boats hit on a 1, or it rolled a 1. So in that case, what could happen is, according to General Hand Grenade, the Germans could either elect to lose a torpedo boat or a cruiser raider, because if you recall, cruiser raiders can only be hit on a 1. And what unit you choose, I mean, that really depends on how you think the battle will go, right? Like, if you might elect to lose a cruiser raider if you think that your torpedo boats have a good chance of doing some good damage in the second round of combat. I think in this case, however, MP7 probably would have wanted to have kept the raiders. They're much harder to hit, and they're very good at, raiding your convoy lines, and are super hard to hunt down. So I imagine he'd want to keep those so he can keep raiding lines in the Pacific region. So in that first round of combat, he would have lost a German torpedo boat, and there was no German hits with either of the torpedo boats that were responding back in that first round, nor either of the cruiser raiders on a 1. So then what would have happened is your cruiser raiders, after the first round of combat, they retreat. So in this case here, we'd probably just move them back into C zone. I think this is, P59. Then the British, of course, would have pressed the second round of combat, and now everything that the British have would have been at their normal attack values because you don't have any raiders. And on a second round of combat, there was a British torpedo boat destroyer that hit on a 4. So this second German torpedo boat destroyer would have been sunk, but it got a hit as well. I don't have written down what number it got, but it definitely did get a hit. And the British probably would have elected to just lose a torpedo boat destroyer. So that's that. So again, this will be updated in the TTS file, but in C-Zone P50, there should now just be 2 British torpedo boat destroyers, as well as 2 British cruisers. So good to know for the future how that works. And the final housekeeping item would just be for the Austro-Hungarian. So I don't have it listed here, but they did have a free diplomacy role. That's definitely something for everyone. I haven't been lucky to have gotten many myself, but that we should keep track of for the future. Like, as soon as you take a territory, even before continuing with your turn, you should place a roundel on the TTS file on the diplomacy chart and make some kind of note for yourself to check that next turn, because I feel like that's something that's very easy to miss, would be your free diplomacy roll. And that's definitely something you don't want to miss out on. So Austria-Hungary did have one, and there's probably more actually, so I should update this on my end as well, so if someone misses it, I can remind them. But they're going to try to go for the Spaniards to bring them down, is what I was told. And I think, I'm not sure if France took into account the 1 IPP in trade they have from Spain. I'll double check that as well. France might have $1 extra in their IPP, but I'll double check that. But if they do, I'll update that in the TTS file as well. But yes, Spain. So they need a 2 or less because they're trying to bring it down. Oh, and look at that. I'm sorry to the Allies, but congrats to Austria-Hungary, I suppose. So Spain moves from +1 France down to ports open. And actually, in fact, because this would have happened technically before the French turn. So actually, yeah, France wouldn't get that 1 IPP in trade. So if he did mark that, I'll have to go and remove that. But if not, we don't have to worry about it. So that should be it for the housekeeping items. Thinking this video is actually rather quite long already, so I'll keep this as its own video. And I'll be back in 2 seconds to film the Russian turn, just so things are a little easier to follow. So I'll be right back.